I should have kept quiet.
No. It was through Charles Scott that hit me to the sound, what made Blakely sound the way he did. And the uniqueness of that sound was the amount of tension and pressure that he used on the sock pedal. If you go back and listen to those earlier recordings, you will always hear the sock. It's like totally definite. There is no question about this. You know, his playing, his sock cymbal playing. I mean, and I'm not talking about with a hand. I'm just talking about the way he had it in sync with the ride cymbal. Would be like hearing African rhythms more than the ching 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 rhythms, and that was based on doing certain things to acquire that.
Like what?
In the Elvin Jones case, it was using being able to control balls with the feet, bouncing them, kind of a little small, smaller than tennis balls, but not a little bigger than golf balls, but not as big as tennis balls or red rubber ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, controlling and manipulating. Philly Joe Jones used to use pillows a lot, developing his technique. Which, if you sit in a hotel room and you're bouncing the sticks off the pillow, you get a whole different effect. The muscles have to develop in a certain way because you're getting more than sound. You're getting a touch feel thing from it and manipulating the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
All these people had a lot of their personal idiosyncrasies. I mean, that was just as obvious as the sound of Thelonious Monk. It's just a very few. I don't think hardly any of the black writers and none of the white writers I know of ever zeroed in on it. They could, you could have this whole group of critics and people who could tell you about Duke Ellington, but it don't take no rocket scientists to talk about Duke Ellington. It's very obvious. It's very there. It's these other things, subtle things that they had to put into a certain context or ignore or act like didn't exist or didn't want to deal with because of societies or societal cultural dictations. So if you listen to certain drummers, for instance, you will hear certain things, and there's some things that they did to develop those things. But I'm also very aware that obviously a lot of that didn't get to academia, or if it did, they don't use it.
Are you talking specifically about the way drummers play?
No. I've told you, made reference to these things before to you. I don't know if you were aware of what I was saying at the time, but I at least said 2 or 3 times to you. One of the things Hank Mobley pointed out and said was that his uncle had told him, you know, that if you stand there, you list at least 2 horns, sometimes more, and maybe more in a big band. If the person soloing before you plays a fast solo, then you start thinking in terms, at least by the time you get to the middle of his solo, how you're going to play a slow solo and what you're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
And if the solos before you're playing a slow solo, then you start thinking of how fast you're going to play after that. You could do the same thing. You can employ. Say if you're doing a concert and the group before you is all this electronic, which can disperse this power of sounds that are usually avoid a spirit, but the sound is there. Mm-hmm. Say if you, I used to play at the Paramount downtown. We used to play opposite of the Sex Pistols, and what's Johnny Rotten and them. I mean.
This is Decoding Society?
No, this is working with Bloods Group. We did Glad to Be in America during that period in Horizon and all those places. We used to work all over town. And when they come on, the sound was so mesmerizing, the kids would stand up on the seats and start just swaying back and forth. It wasn't nothing about no playing. This was about sound systems, what sound system can do to people. Mm-hmm. So, if you're playing a concert and the group is playing so powerful and so much sound, what do? Well, my own experience would be, and what I used to do, we'd go out and play the flute. It's the first song just to settle people down. I mean, and take them to another state. The sound of the flute, the breathing mechanisms involved with playing the flute. We're not talking about intonation or manipulation of notes. We're talking about what the flute does to the human spirit, mm-hmm. which is different from what one technically learns in terms of manipulation. I mean, there's a fellow who lives in the building where I live in New York, Smith. He's blind. He teaches down at the UN school. He does radio broadcasts for Philadelphia Radio, and he goes to Nigeria and Ghana all the time. Is his name. He became blind while living in that building. When I met him, he wasn't blind. Anyway, I used to take him down to the Philharmonic. James Galway and people like that would send him tickets, right? So they would send his tickets and invite to the green room. So I'd take him. He'd ask me, I'd meet run him to an elevator. I always run into him and say. And he always brings Black Eyed Peas to the front door on New Year's Day, like a strict time clock. Mm-hmm. So I'm not talking about the playing manipulation of notes. I'm talking about the idea that can be divinated.
Can be what? I'm sorry.
Like using divination.
Oh, okay.
Because you can deal with the spirit without dealing with the other stuff. You just go right directly to it. I mean, what's that fellow named Chimar used to do it all the time at the Carnegie Hall at these free concerts he used to have. Mm-hmm. Just playing sounds on the flute. Well, I mean, of course, the Indian mystics and people from all that part of Asia, Occidental, they've been very aware of that, from Africa and all these places who use the flute. It's just that when it gets into the European situation, it becomes this so-and-so is faster than so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so, where it gets taken out of contact of the spirit of it and taken place into a mechanical manipulation of it, which don't give you what can be gotten from it, which is the soothingness. Mm-hmm. The flute can bring people almost to the same kind of smoothness as when they go out and stand in front of an ocean, or go and stand in front of and being engulfed in a wooded area with a stream, a brook running by where you can hear it. It's mesmerizing. Mm-hmm. But those sounds have been taken away, or not acknowledged. What's the problem? Well, they can't be taught. So you're asking me this question, and I'm trying to give you as much information about it as I can without understanding the context of what that is. Music. It wasn't about anything other than music. The problem here is, again, when you put it in the context, take it out of the context of what it is, it has to be categorized. When this essentially all black village environment, meditation, spiritual, let's enjoy the self.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck the bullshit. Fuck that shit about sin and all that stupidity shit. You know, I mean, whether this man was black or white or all this other crazy shit, you know, they know the real truth. So, but it's still the bullshit. So how do you do it? You got these people who are in this situation, which they go back to their native roots and do something, and it's just music. It's only when it comes out of there it has to be categorized and classified as rock, jazz, hard bop or bebop or so forth and so on. Because the reality of it was all these things at one time.
It's not exactly that I'm trying to categorize it. I'm just trying to build a better impression in my mind of what it was as an experience.
And I'm trying to convey to you what I experienced and realized outside of that box.
Okay.
Inside that box, it was looked at as music, is what I'm trying to say to you.
Okay.
It wasn't looked at as a category.
Okay.
It wasn't looked at it as a style. It wasn't looked at it as a attitude. It wasn't looked at it as any of those things. It was the same almost as when you're traveling through Africa and people get together as far up as Spain. Still, as far up as Spain and in some parts of Portugal, but they don't get past there. Not really. I haven't seen it, you know, where these people just get together and play music. This is what life is, part of life. It's only when it had been taken and put it in these categorical, academic refined situations,
Mm-hmm.
where what really occurs is, as opposed to refreshing the spirit and enjoying life, you get into a competitive ideology of this is had. If it's not done this way, it's not so. It has to be done just like this. There's so many bars to a measure. It has to be in this key. It has to be done like this, so forth. Oh, so and so is very. If you were in Germany, very important. Very important. If Goethe didn't say it, if Wagner didn't do it, if Nietzsche didn't present it, it just was not there. This is no good. Mm-hmm. If you're in France, it would have to be W's from Debussy to Chopin, who was there, who was Polish, but who was there, mm-hmm. To Liszt, Franz Liszt, who was there, but also from what would they be called Eastern Europe at one time. Mm-hmm. All these people there, from Paganini, who was Italian, but all these. It wasn't systematized.
Okay.
It is when something becomes a system that it is in the system is like system like it's like birth. Mm-hmm. It is the beginning of this, if the end of that. Because its outcome is always the corruption of it from what it will be to the next generation.
Okay.
When it becomes systematized, it's like when it becomes, the word in French would be the person is fonctionnaire.
Okay.
And music is not a functionnaire element of life. It is one of the most powerful things in life.
I know I can never experience it.
No,
I'm not trying to evaluate it. I'm not trying to categorize it. I'm just trying as hard as I can to imagine what it must have been like. I'm actually on a more elementary plane than you think I'm asking about. I would just love to be able to know what that sounded like and try to hear what you heard when you were very young and were so moved by that. I would just like to know what it sounded like.
I don't. Maybe for some reason I'm not getting across what I'm trying to come. I'm trying to say what it is.
Okay.
What I'm saying is what it is. It's not. I'm not thinking. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But I'm trying to say it in a way that what it is. Not. I can't. If I went to academia to explain it, you can't explain it there. It's not a correlation. I can only experience it and tell you in those words that I'm looking at these experiences. You asked me about Greenway Park.